Okay, so what I want to look at in this lesson is this idea of the midpoint of a line segment in coordinated geometry. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to draw a grid, an x-axis and a y-axis. So let's do that now. One, two. Okay, so something like this. So if we remember, the horizontal line, or the line along the bottom, is what's known as the x-axis. So it's the x-axis. And it will contain the x coordinates. And this point here is what's known as the origin. So if you remember the origin, okay, so the origin is its value is 0, and it's where the x-axis and the y-axis meet. So then what we can do is we can put in the x coordinates. So this is 0. So therefore this is 1. This is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm just going to stop at 8. But it continues on in this direction. And then this axis here, which is the vertical axis, is what's known as the y-axis. And again, it's going to have its y coordinates. So let's put those in. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and that will continue on in that direction as well. Now what you'll notice as well is that we're just looking at one quadrant, so we're looking at the first quadrant. So this whole thing here is the first quadrant. Like I could draw a line out this way and draw a line down this way and put in the other quadrants, but at the moment all I'm going to be looking at are these values here that will all lie within the first quadrant. Okay, so we're looking at, so it's just one quadrant this time that we're looking at. So it's always, when you're thinking about graphs as well, think about that it's graphs are part of a quadrant. So we have our x-axis and we have our y-axis, we have our x coordinates and we have our y coordinates, and we have here a grid space, or what's known as a coordinated plane. So this will be an example of what's known as a coordinated plane. And basically what that means is that I can put a point anywhere, let's say, within this plane, and I can get coordinates for it. So if we think about a line, or a line segment. So a line segment, like if we think about a line segment, it has to have 2 points. Okay, so it's going to be something like this. And it's going to have, let's say, point A and point B. Okay, and it's cut off here. It's not a line, it doesn't continue on in each direction, it's just a segment of a line. So imagine we are given, so let's say if we're told that we have a line segment, so point A, so we can write it like this, has the coordinates 2 and 1, and point B has the coordinates 6 and 5. So this is the line segment, and we can use the symbols that we've learned, A, B. Now, what we want to do is we want to take this coordinated plane, or this line segment, and put it onto our plane here. So what we can do is we can use these coordinates to do that. And then what we can start to do is we can look at the midpoint, which is just the middle part, and that's what I want to talk about. So if we remember, when we have these here are what are known as coordinates. Okay, so we have the coordinates for point A, the coordinates for point A, and the coordinates for point B. So if we remember, the number that's on the left hand side is the x coordinate, and the number that's on the right hand side is the y coordinate. Okay, so this is x and this is y. So what we can do now is we can plot these points on this grid. So how do we do that? So let's say if we take point A, so we have to go across 2, so we start here. So it's 2 on the x-axis, and then it's 1 on the y-axis. So it's going to be here. So see the way? So you're going up, so it's going to be here. So this is point A. So point A, and its coordinates are 2 and 1. So that's point A. We can just put it in like so. Now, then we need to put in the second coordinate, which is point B, so a line segment has 2 points. So the x coordinate is 6, so it's over here, and the y coordinate is 5, so it's 6, which is over here, and then 5, which is up here. So this is our point B. So we can call this point B, like so, 6, 5. So that's point B. So now what we have is we have 2 points. Once we have 2 points, we can join the 2 points and form what's known as a line segment. So I can draw a line from here to here. And this here represents the line segment AB. So we're just taking the numbers value that we have here, or the coordinates, and we're putting them onto the graph, and then we can plot our line like so. Now, what I want to talk about, or what I want to think about, is this idea of what's known as the midpoint. And I'll just write this over here. So midpoint. So midpoint of a line segment. So if we think about it's exactly what it means, it just means so if we were to measure this line and then we're to get the middle of it, that's what it means. So it's just wherever the middle point is. But now that point, remember, it's going to have coordinates. It's going to have an x coordinate and it's going to have a y coordinate. And that's what we're trying to figure out here. We're trying to work this out. So what we can do is we can use this formula. And it looks a little bit complicated, but it's not that bad. So the formula then that we can use looks something like this. So the midpoint formula is m is equal to, and then we have in brackets, so the first coordinate is going to be x1 plus x2 divided by 2. So that's one coordinate. And then the other coordinate is y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And what you notice here is that this here is going to give you 2 coordinates. So it's going to give you the x coordinate and it's going to give you the y coordinate, and that's going to correspond to the midpoint of this particular line. So what you do is, so if we look here, we have 2 points. So what we can say is, so let's say if we take, so we can call this one here x1, and then we can call this one up here x2. So we have 2 points. Each point has an x coordinate. So you take one of the points and you make it x1, and then the other one is x2. So that's what will correspond in here. And then this one here, so we have the y coordinate. So we can call this y1 and we can call this y2. So now we notice that we have all of the information that we need in order to be able to substitute the values into this midpoint formula. So let's go ahead and do that then. So the midpoint of this particular line is going to be equal to x1. So x1 is the x coordinate for this point A. So the value for that is 2. Okay, so the value for it is 2, so we can see it's here. So it's going to be 2 plus the x coordinate for point B, which is 6. So we see it's here, 6. So it's 2 plus 6 divided by 2. Now this makes the, if we just put this in red, so this is going to, so we're trying to work out the midpoint, and the midpoint has an x value and a y value. So let's say, so imagine this is our midpoint, so it's going to have an x value, and then it's going to have a y value, like so. So we're trying to find these out here. So this part here is giving us the x coordinate for the midpoint. Okay, so let's do the second part. So that's the x coordinate. So that's going to be the x coordinate, and then the y coordinate is going to be equal to y1, which is this value here. So it's going to be equal to 1. So we take point A, we take the coordinate, the y coordinate for point A, which is 1, and then we add it to the y coordinate from point B, which is 5. 1 plus 5 divided by 2. And now this gives us the y coordinate for our midpoint. So then we just have to do the math on this. So what we can do then, let's have a look. So we do this, so we add, so 2 plus 6 is 8, so that's going to be 8 over 2. And then 1 plus 5 is, so that's going to be 6 over 2. Okay, so again we continue with this, and then we can break this down further. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, so that's going to be 4. And then 6 divided by 2 is 3. So now we have coordinates for the midpoint. So now what we can do is we can take this midpoint and we can plot it onto our line by using the coordinates. So we have, so this is the, so remember this is the x value and this is the y value. So what we're saying is x is 4, because we've worked it out, and y is 3. So now what we can do is we can start to plot this. So again, the first thing we do when we're plotting points on this coordinated plane, we start with our x value. So we see, so what we're going to do is we're going to plot the midpoint of this line segment. So it's going to be somewhere in the middle. But this is the exact value, the exact coordinates for it. So the midpoint is, so the x value is 4. So we go over here, we see here's 4 along the bottom, along the horizontal, and we draw a line up like so. And we see here that it cuts the line here. And then what we can do is we see that the y value is 3, so we draw our line across here. And we see here where the dot is on the line. This here is what's known as the midpoint. It's the midpoint of this line segment. The line segment goes from here to here. So this is known as the midpoint of the line segment AB. So this is it here, and its coordinates, as we've worked out using this formula, is equal to, so m is equal to 4, 3, like so. So that's what we mean by when we're talking about the midpoint. That's what we mean, and there's nothing really more complicated than that. In order to, if you want to calculate your midpoint, this is the formula that you're going to use here. When you're getting the midpoint, so if you have a line, you're going to have a point here and a point here. So this is going to have, let's say, this point here will have an x and y coordinate, and this point here will have an x and y coordinate. So we can call this x1, we can call this x2, we can call this one y1, and this one y2. Okay, so then the midpoint is going to be somewhere between here, between these 2 points, and it also will have an x and a y coordinate. So we take whatever these values are, whatever the x and y coordinate is for the first point. So let's say we call this point 1. Okay, so this is point 1, and then this is 0.2, and they have the corresponding x and y coordinates, and then we take the actual values and we substitute the values into this formula, and then that will give us the x and y coordinates for this here. This will give us the x and y coordinates of the midpoint. So again, this is like, this formula is important that you understand how to use it, and that's what we mean by this idea of what's known as the so the midpoint of a line segment. So we just call it midpoint. Of a line segment. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense, and I'll give you a couple of questions to work on as well, just so that you can kind of reinforce the learn. So again, so this is just coordinated geometry, and then this is just another progression on then where we're starting to look at what's known as the midpoint of a line segment. Okay guys, thank you.